guys, so today I'm going to be doing for you what is the difference between US and UK grocery stores. I thought I've been here for around 5 months now. I basically go to the grocery store every day or whenever I get the chance, and yeah, I thought that maybe you guys would be interested. So before I jump in, I have to say that I am from the East Coast of America. I'm from Boston. I know that a lot of the comparisons that I see online are between New York and London, and obviously Boston is just, you know, a little bit more suburban, a little bit more kind of like a home feel and less of a city feel. So I'm describing a comparison between that. But, you know, that being said, I have been to, you know, the West Coast and like Ralph's and down south with the Piggly Wiggly and Kroger's and whatnot. So I will keep those in mind as I do this comparison. Yeah, I made notes because I had so many thoughts that I always write down for you guys. And then two, I guess, is that obviously I live in the city. I live in London. So a lot of the grocery stores here could be smaller in size. Like instead of, you know, a gigantic Tesco, they have the Tesco Express or the Tesco Metro. So I have a lot of those there. So just to keep in mind that maybe if I lived further out into the suburbs where there are more of the big box stores, then maybe the variety or the quantity of stuff changes over there. So that's that. Okay, so number one is the UK has way better online grocery shopping. What I mean by that is, whereas in the US, you know, we'll have Instacart or we'll have Peapod, certain, I guess, like agencies that help deliver the goods from the grocery store. In the UK, every grocery chain has a division, has an online grocery division. And so when you go to like Tesco or you go to Sainsbury or you go to Waitrose, a huge chunk of their like online section is devoted to you buying groceries online. I think that that's probably because, you know, people who live in the city, I don't have a car. Oh, you guys don't know, like when you don't have a car and you're buying like either like water or like toilet paper or just like big heavy things, it is such a hassle. And so it makes sense that they would have such a well-developed online grocery store presence. And I guess I had some notes for this, but it's just everything is better developed. Like the websites, it's super easy if you have like an allergy or a food preference to filter out things like, are you vegan, are you vegetarian? Do you not want milk in this? Do you want low sugar? Do you want to be gluten-free? Which makes certain dietary restrictions so much easier. It's just a nicer experience to shop online. Like everything is easy. Like, do you want to add an additional item? Do you want to take that item away? Everything is like with ease. Like if you made an order, you know, last month or last week, you can bring up the old order and see all the items that you've ordered, and then you can easily kind of like move that over to your new cart. And then probably two of like the biggest things of why in America we don't go online grocery shopping as much is probably like one, there's definitely a price difference within the items. Like I always feel like online they charge you a little bit more because they have to like send it or somebody has to pack it, and it's more. Whereas I feel like in the UK, I would think that either the prices are the same or it's even cheaper because you can see deals as it comes and it'll register in the website. And then two is that delivery price. I think most people don't want to pay, like in addition to their groceries, something extra for someone driving it over and then carrying it up and whatnot. In the UK, it's cheap. So it depends on the time slots that you pick, but if you pick it in the evening from, I would say like 6 p.m. through 11 p.m., the prices are like £1.50, maybe £2. So the cost is completely negligible to how much convenience it gives you. A thing on that is you have to buy 40 pounds or more, and they will deliver it within that kind of like that lower delivery price. And if you buy less, then it's a little bit more. So if you live in, you know, like a 4-person household, definitely 40 pounds, you're gonna make it every week. If you live in a 2-person household, you might do it, you know, once every 2 weeks. And if you needed, you know, fresh vegetables or fresh bread, you can just stop by the local, you know, Tesco Express or Sainsbury Local and then pick that up and kind of like supplement your groceries that way. But it is probably the biggest difference that I see in how I shop is a lot of the stuff is online, and it makes it super easy, especially if I plan ahead and I know, the recipes that I'm going to be shooting the week later or the next week. I can kind of plan out my grocery list, and then I don't have to go out with, a backpack and then stuff everything into the bag and then have to carry it home. Okay, so there's that. Now, number two, I think most people will say like, oh, well, you're living in London. That's gonna be super expensive, right? I bet like food's super expensive. I bet, everything is super expensive. And it's true. The rent is really expensive. They have the VAT, the value added tax here for a lot of the things, like when you're going out to eat. But in terms of basic food products, like your necessities, they don't have a VAT on that. And I almost find that price is either comparable to the US, around the same, or I actually think it might be even cheaper. So with the value added tax, it's not on basic food stuff. So your necessities are exempt from that. Books are exempt from that. Certain medical products are going to be exempt from that. And I was reading in one of the newspapers, I think it was the Independent or the Guardian or something, and they were saying that because of the discount grocery chains like Asda and Lidl, or Little, I don't know how to pronounce that, that has really driven down the cost of groceries. So it's a big benefit to consumers. And I think Trader Joe's is part of Aldi. So if you guys have ever been to Trader Joe's, you know that they carry a lot of private label stuff. A lot of things are at a discounted price because there's no brand on it. And that's kind of the other thing about the UK is I find that in these kind of normal grocery stores, there's a lot of private labels. So there's a lot of like Sainsbury hoisin sauce, Sainsbury Chinese black bean sauce. We do that in the States as well. Like I see that all the time, but I don't know if people are as okay with getting, the off brand. I think that here they do a really nice job. Like everything tastes really good and people don't mind it. And there is a variety. Like in every, different product, there seems to be an alternative. So I listed specific things down that were cheaper. So UK berries, like raspberries, avocados are crazy cheap here. Whereas like in Boston, I think it was, at a good price, it was like $1.75, $2. Here, I can easily find like 2 for a pound. And then if you go to kind of like the farmers markets, sometimes I'll pick up like 6 avocados for a pound. It's absolutely bizarre. And I was like, Water crackers. If you guys ever like to use the water crackers for, like cheese or like dip or for hummus, for some reason in the States, I think because it's imported, is really expensive there, like $3 for a box of crackers. And here it's about a pound. I think it's because obviously it comes from the UK. In general though, I think in the UK, fruits are cheaper. I think because they are, currently still a part of the European Union. I think that a lot of that helps because you get a lot of produce from all of the other places that are able to make it. Let's see. UK spices. So because there is such a larger Indian population in the UK, like every grocery store has ample amounts of Indian ingredients. So it's nice because I get to try out a bit more at very discounted prices. So getting things like whole cardamom or garam masala, just all of these different spices, they're all really about a pound. So they're not expensive at all. They are very readily available, like naan and like papadums and different lentils and different beans, all at a very discounted price just because the Indian population here is larger. I'm trying to go back to the US and to think, I think I've mentioned that I think tofu is cheaper in the US. I think that there are a lot more different kinds of tofu in the US, just for like everyday people. Like we're not talking about going to a specialty grocery store to find these. But yeah, I think it's because in the US they subsidize their beans, and I think that it is cheaper that way. So it's not, I think it's about like £2 £2.50 here versus like in the US, I feel like I can get it for a lot cheaper. But in general, I would say most of the normal food stuff in the UK either comparable or cheaper than the US. And normal food stuff, I don't mean like ice cream or like Ben and Jerry's, which is imported, has that tax, and is very, very expensive here. Okay, so let's see. Number 3 I put as different things sold in the UK, also in different ways. So you guys were probably asking, like, yeah, like exactly how is it different? Like, do they carry different products and different things? I do think that the UK, they have like, Jaffa cakes and Scotch eggs and Lyle's golden syrup and also like a bunch of like digestive biscuits, right? Things that the UK is known for. So they'll have goods specific to the country, obviously. Whereas I think in America, I think most people know American food. I think we are really good at spreading our culture and our food culture and our movies and whatnot. So I don't think that a UK person coming to the US would necessarily be that surprised at what they see. Although, obviously different regions are different, right? So, okay, so this is interesting. Foods that come in different forms. So in the UK, Jello does not come in powdered form, which was bizarre. It's like the same kind of like package. It comes in a bag and the whole thing just feels like a flub of jelly. That is how they sell Jello here. I remember that I was doing this thing for this company and I had to go and find Jello and I couldn't find it anywhere. I was like, how can it be that they don't sell, Jello or gelatin? And I ended up having to buy gelatin sheets to make it. So in case if you guys come here and you're looking for Jello, there's also no shortening here. I know that it's not necessarily the healthiest of things, but sometimes I need it for things. And they don't have shortening here. What they do have is something called vegetable suet, which is like weird and completely different. It's kind of like these little grains of fats that have been separated with like rice starch or tapioca starch or something, and then it's not shortening. But the thing is, you can put it in pastry goods, and it does kind of function like shortening. But they do not have shortening in the UK. And then frozen avocados. So I think in America we're just so like anal about avocados, like it needs to be fresh, and then you need to keep it ripe, and then after it's ripe it just goes bad and it molds right away. And so we care about avocados a lot, but here they have the avocados, and then you can buy them in packs of like 3, 6, 9 avocados that are just frozen. And apparently you can just thaw it out and it will function like an avocado. I have not tried this yet. You guys should try that out and then tell me whether it thaws out okay. Let's see. UK's emphasis on gluten-free. So it's not like there was a ton of stuff that's gluten-free. I mean, I remember seeing like a lot of gluten-free flours everywhere, but just by being here, going to the restaurants, I get a general sense that the UK people are a lot more conscientious of gluten intolerance, of celiac disease. I think like in the US, we do, but it's not as big. I just feel like here there is an emphasis on like, I don't eat gluten. And so there are choices in the grocery stores for it. In most of the chain grocery stores, there's like this section. Basically, they don't have a health food section per se, which I like about the US, but they do have this small section that's like their free from section. So it could be like free from wheat, milk, free from sugar, and then sometimes on occasion it'll be like all together, and that's a good thing. But they'll have this section specifically for people that have, certain allergies or certain dietary restrictions. So it's nice to kind of go to that section and know that, you can get something that you can eat. Okay, so UK, next one. UK eggs are stored outside of the refrigerator. And I think that happens actually in a lot of countries, so I don't think that you guys will be too surprised by that. But I believe the explanation is that in the US, we sterilize a lot of things. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but we wash the eggs after it has come out, and I believe it gets rid of the protective coating that the egg naturally has to keep bacteria out. So because we don't have that coating, we have to keep it in the refrigerator. It's not strange. I've seen it before in other countries, but yeah, it's just weird. Like while you're looking for like flour or like cereal, the eggs are kind of within that section as well. UK liquor. So in the States, different states have different rules, right? You can either carry liquor or you cannot, or maybe you can't sell it on Sundays. You can sell liquor in the UK in grocery stores. I think that there's different rules though, because the one that opens either 24 hours or until midnight, they could not sell alcohol after 11 p.m. But that, might be just different everywhere and different rules. So that was different things sold in the UK in different ways, maybe. Okay, so 4, choices. The US still reigns supreme in offering, a boatload of choices to all of their consumers. And that is nice. That is something that I've certainly grown accustomed to, and I've definitely gotten spoiled by, because in the UK, there's a lot less brands. I think that they're getting there. I definitely think, in some of the more big box stores in the suburbs, there's more choices, but in general, what I see is, like the 3 to 4. It's very manageable. It's not like in the US where, I could just read labels forever to see, what company does what. So there are less choices here. And then I think I was talking to one of the condiment manufacturers. I think sometimes the reasons are that there are higher standards for food here or in the European Union. And so, in the case of like GMO crops or like GMO soybeans, it can still come through, but it needs to pass various tests and various regulations to get over here. So whereas, for a particular brand, like maybe in the US you'll see, 50 different products from that brand, maybe in the UK you'll only see 30 because, certain ingredients might not be allowed here, or it needs to pass certain tests. So there's that. And then under choices, for someone who's vegan, I think that there are less choices here in the UK at normal grocery stores. Like there are definitely specialty, like gourmet and organic grocery stores, but for here, I feel like, again, it goes back to choices. Like we don't have like a ton of different tofu types here. It's really hard to find tempeh here. Just like different like seitan meats, maybe because I don't really like gluten here. It's just, I feel like in any kind of like grocery store in the US, I feel like I would see more items for the everyday consumer, which is strange because I almost feel like the UK is a more mature market for vegan things, vegan products, and vegan foods, because every restaurant that I go to, there is at least one vegan option. Like you don't really have to be worried here. And seeing the recipes that the restaurants are creating, they're a lot more creative. They are delicious, they are yummy, and so I know them to be a more mature vegan food market. And yet I still feel like when it comes to preparing the vegan stuff yourself and going to the grocery store, I feel like that there's less products available for people to cook themselves. I also find that the UK, yes, it has less morning cereal choices, but it also has less unhealthy cereals. Like I remember I was looking for, maybe it was like Fruity Pebbles or something, and I get that that's a US import, but just like looking through, probably the most unhealthy cereal that a larger Tesco that I went to had was like maybe kind of like a Cocoa Pebbles, Cocoa Rice cereal equivalent. I didn't find a lot of things that were like heavy in sugar and heavy in different colors. And so I don't know if that's like a rule. I don't know if that's a conscious effort to kind of make sure to watch what the kids are eating. So there's that. Important one. In the UK, somebody told me this. In the UK, the word Asian is synonymous with Indian. I feel like in the US, Asian for us kind of, East Asians or like, Japanese or Chinese, like it's kind of like a general kind of group, and we wouldn't necessarily refer to Indians as Indians. But here, Asians mean Indian. And so there's a lot of Asian food here because there's a lot of Indian food here. Whereas like I think in the US, it really depends on where you live. Like, the country is just so much bigger. Like, it's kind of hard to do this comparison. But in like Cambridge, Somerville, where I used to live, there was a big Dominican population. And so we would have a lot of like plantains and a lot of like root vegetables and just like things that I would see when I went to the Dominican Republic and then come back and be like, oh, there's a large amount of this here. I would imagine being at a grocery store in California, you might see a lot more Mexican foods. And I'm just talking about like authentic Mexican stuff. It's just probably a result of who lives in the area. I have a couple more. Okay, so number 5, certain things in the UK are smaller. And again, I'm not sure if I'm just because I live in the city, but I did kind of go out to bigger grocery stores to check this out. So like things like soy milk and things like flour, they're smaller. They're like, I can't find larger amounts. And so I have to buy them more often, or I have to like carry them more often. And I was reading one of the bigger London newspapers that I was saying that UK shoppers are kind of trending to shopping more often, like, you know, like every day or every other day to pick up what they need for dinner or for breakfast, instead of just buying, you know, one lump sum at the beginning of the week and then shopping like once each week. So maybe, you know, buying big things is not necessary, because then you'd have to carry it home because you don't have a car. So number 6, you guys might have heard this one before too. The UK grocery stores carries a lot more ready-made foods. Like in the US, we have ready-made foods, right? But it's in the frozen food section and then you stick it into the microwave. In the UK, there are large like cold case sections devoted to, like, it could be like sandwiches, it could be mashed potatoes and steak that has already been prepared, pastas that have already been prepared, and all you do, it's not frozen. You just like stick it into the microwave or stick it into the oven, and then you have your food for the day. And I don't really think it's just the city. Like I really do, like in every grocery store that I've been to, it's just, there's a lot of pre-prepared ready-made stuff, like fresh ready-made stuff. And that's very different from the US. I don't see it as often. The good thing with these ready-made foods, and I just think a good practice in general for UK grocery stores, is at the end of the day, the foods that are not eaten, especially the ready-made ones, like the sandwiches, you know, you can really only keep them there for, you know, a day or two, or vegetables that are right about to be expired, they put at severely discounted rates. Like you might see a sandwich for like 40 pence, so like 40 cents here. You might see, I just bought some broccoli that looked perfectly fine and it was like 15p. So it's definitely like, if you're on a budget, or even if you just want to pick up things at a good price, go to the grocery store here at the end of the day, and you can really pick up a lot of stuff that, you know, like lunch for tomorrow, and you can get it at a really good price. And I know a lot of the chains here put a big emphasis on food waste as well. I don't know if that's as big in the US. Let's see, 7, watching plastics. So UK and plastics versus US and plastics. I know that a lot of the cities in Massachusetts had already started charging for plastic bags. I think very much like in probably like Portland or California or something. And here in the UK, they do the same. They charge 10p per bag that you use. So they do care about that. But then conversely though, I know that people have complained about them using a lot of plastics to wrap their fruits or vegetables. I would say like in the US, I'm very much used to seeing big displays of like fruits and vegetables, and you know, they're all like nice and big and you know, displayed out. Whereas in the UK, maybe space or for space reasons or something, everything is in shelves, but it's all packaged. So there's like the, I don't know if it's styrofoam, but there's like the foamy bottom, and then they wrap it in plastic, which is, you know, not really necessary. You can just put everything into like probably like a basket, and people can just buy it then. I actually don't see a lot of fish here. Like in the States, there's always like big meat displays, there's big fruit displays, there's a section of fish usually. And I find that in the UK, there are not these big displays. Again, maybe because I live in the city, but certainly I haven't really seen fish in a while. Just like fish on ice, mussels and clams and whatnot, and maybe, I don't know. Okay, and then the last one is self-checkout and couponing. So yes, in the US, there's always like a couple of lanes devoted to self-checkout, like 3 lanes, but then there could be like 10 or 15 total in the grocery store. But in the UK, it's almost like flipped. There's like 3 lanes where there are people in it, and then the other like 10 lanes or like 20 lanes, they are self-checkout. And I think the key to that is like, how can there be that many lanes? Because people buy less, because they're in the city, they're not actually lanes, they're actually like stations. So there's like 10 stations here, and then across from them is 10 stations there. So it takes up less space, and people in general, like, they don't really run into any issues. Like, there's always a guy in the lanes walking up and down in case if you can't find the code to something. But it seems to work really well, and I hardly have to wait in the grocery store in lines, because there's just not that much. And then also, like, lastly, no couponing in the UK. I mean, I bet that there is, but I don't think that there's a coupon culture here. Like, I haven't seen anyone use a coupon before. Like, I'm sure that there are like promo codes online and stuff like that, but certainly I haven't really seen it at the grocery stores. Yeah, so that is it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed kind of seeing my take on what I feel are the differences. I probably definitely missed a lot. So if you guys are watching and you have a comment on this, definitely make sure to comment down below. And yeah, anyways, I will see you guys again next time. Bye.